All right. And now let's. I know people are dying to know. We're going to get into the criminal side of this week's discussion. Let's start with Rittenhouse because we haven't heard anything about this in a while. First of all, what you can discuss and only what you can discuss. What's the status? What's the update?
So he appeared in court this week because they were tightening down the schedule for when motions will be filed, when juror questionnaires will be filed. His trial is set now for November. Probably be a several-week trial, might go a month. There are additional lawyers announced there. Those lawyers have been part of the team for a while. And in fact, there's an advisory team that I'm putting together that are giving advice, and probably a lot of people would know them. But for now, I'll let them disclose when they want to as to their role and their involvement. But so as to the whole case, and there's already other work afoot on the investigative side and the other side. So the continuing to expand that, it's going to be obviously a critical case. Prosecution continues to march forward. And so, have to be sort of, fully prepped and prepared, building a big jury selection team as well, because that's going to be, as the Chauvin case revealed, critical. But so there were some, and then the media repeated some lies, but they can get away with those lies for the time being until the trial happens. If he is acquitted like he should be, then can seek remedy in that space. Still have ongoing problems with John Pierce. He's hiding money, appears to have stolen money, is doing the same shenanigans. Lynn Wood's people are not being as helpful as they could be on that side of the equation. That's unfortunate. Might have to end up bringing suit against John Pierce. Is actually trying to demand more money now after he did scams to begin with. So, it is what it is. It's what I said about those individuals turned out true and then some. And we're going to continue to seek remedy. But the continuing to ramp up the defense at every single level to make sure he has a dream team caliber defense at every capacity of the case, from investigation to the court of public opinion to jury selection to the trial itself, and any motions that might be brought correspondent there too. But so that's the main update.
All right. Now, before I bring up this comment, because I do want to ask the question, I was just talking with someone earlier today, and I said, you, Robert, we live on the internet. We say things that can never be taken down. So when you make predictions, if they're wrong, they're out there. You can't take them back. I've made a bunch of predictions that have turned out to be very wrong, and I like to tout them because it shows that I'm fallible. I was telling this person that you've been ahead of the curve on a number of issues, not just a number of issues, but a number of issues where being that far ahead of the curve was the least probable or very unlikely outcome at the time. And, this is one of them in terms of John Pierce and Linwood and the fundraising and the problems with that. You called it out before the problem existed. And it's not to stroke your ego. It's just to say, people make predictions. When you make them publicly online, they don't go away. And when you make bad ones, they're rubbed in your face. And when you make good ones, they're out there for everyone to see. And you've been on with a lot of this. This is the question I wanted to get to, because people don't ask. And sometimes they don't ask. Sometimes they just assume that Rittenhouse somehow gets, not satisfaction, but rather vindication from being victimized by the media. And, he's sacrificing himself for Second Amendment rights across the country. Or, Jordan Peterson suffering for the benefit of everyone. But these people suffer, like Julian Assange, and there's no real joy in being the victim of this. How is he doing personally on an individual level, if you know?
Yeah, there's two aspects. I mean, a lot of the media has misrepresented him as, a militia guy, a vendetta guy, a vengeance guy, someone who is proud or smirking. It's kind of like the Covington kid misrepresentations. He would much rather not be here. I mean, he's a kid who, spent his first 2 weeks throwing up in response to what happened. Didn't want any deaths to occur. No, nothing like that. Just wanted to try to take care of people and protect people. I mean, the best way you can describe Kyle Rittenhouse is half of him wants to be a military, police officer, and half wants to be a nurse. I mean, why? Because the things that tie those things together, being protective of others, particularly vulnerable others. And that's who the kid is. And so he was horrified and traumatized by everything that took place. Now, as self-defense experts have noted, he exercised extraordinary patience, extraordinary discipline, extraordinary restraint in his course of conduct that day. There are people that are using what he did as films to show, here's how you restrain yourself when it's very difficult in a high stress circumstances where it might be easy to get trigger happy. He was just the opposite. I mean, literally is waiting to the last possible second before until his life is in imminent risk of severe harm before he does anything, which is a credit to him. But all these media lies about, the arrogance and happy and vengeful, all of that is complete gibberish and complete nonsense. On the flip side, his focus is just keeping his life as good a shape as it can be, educationally, personally, mental health, physical health, recovering from all of this, the public trauma of this, and getting prepared for trial. So, a kid who's more mature, much more mature for his age than you would expect. But he's thrown into the middle of a situation where there's a lot of lions who want to tear him apart. And it's only the protection of the people that has been like God in Daniel in the lion's den to keep him from suffering that harm. And these corrupt prosecutors continue to go afield and continue to march on with their corrupt behavior. So that's going to be a battle of the century kind of case.
And now, I mean, I'm presuming that not the example, but rather the illustration you gave of him throwing up for the first 2 weeks of this was not something you made up. Like, this is a kid, and this is another thing people don't fully appreciate. There's a lot of internet warriors, and I'm saying that actually non-judgmentally. A lot of people who support Second Amendment rights, self-defense, I would have done the same thing, who don't know what it's like to have actually killed someone, even if they deserved it, and to actually have done what he did, even if it was in total self-defense. And I won't say guilt that you live with or remorse, just nausea of the fact that it's the ultimate thing. Really, there's nothing more extreme than that in the world, even if it's totally justified and totally warranted. And this is how old was he at the time again? 17. So he's someone who's never experienced anything like this before, thrown into a war zone in the middle of it. And the biggest lie the media keeps telling is who these people were. I mean, that audience, that crowd that night was filled with dangerous, violent felons waging war on the city of Kenosha for a politicized narrative that was utterly fictitious, fraudulent, and false. And the community tried to defend itself, and the kid who comes from that community, where he's part of, Kenosha extends into that part of Illinois. You're part of Kenosha, effectively. Everybody that knows anything about that area knows that. It's another place where the media lies a lot. The Young Turks lies a lot about this. And would try to protect itself the best it could after a night of having their property destroyed. Because contrary to what a lot of these nitwits say in the media, often there is no insurance against arson. There is often no insurance against riots. So there's no place you can sue. There's no place you can get remedy. Your business is destroyed, forever, done, finished. And so people that tried to come to the defense of that community, and frankly, a lot of people were too scared to do so, and I would understand why. Quite reasonable. But the people that tried to come to the protection of that community were assaulted and attacked and targeted for assault. And, some of these people were some of the nastiest, most vicious criminal scum around. Anybody who knows the circumstances knows who the three victims, for lack of victims, were in this case.
Three criminals. That's who they were. Three criminals who were violent, who behaved violent, who tried to attack a kid for simply defending his community and trying to protect his community. That an honest prosecutor would have prosecuted them, but there isn't an honest prosecutor in Kenosha right now.
I'll say this out loud, by the way. Spam and outright threats get banned. So blocked, and I hate doing it. So don't do it. We see the chat, putting it up 15 times doesn't help the message get across. It just distracts.
There's a transition into the interesting legal events. Just a brief story. Apparently, somebody who's a fan decided that I needed to be their lawyer, and so they are trying to sue me to force me to be their lawyer, which is new.
Robert,
they did send apologies in advance. They said, please don't sue me back. So, by the way, that's not a good, effective way to get me to be your lawyer. That creates a professional conflict of interest that prohibits me from being your lawyer. So just word to the wise, please don't sue me to try to make me your lawyer.
I once actually had to withdraw from a file and then was subpoenaed by the client for whom I prepared the proceedings to appear as a witness for that and to compel me to represent and not withdraw from the file. Yet, I mean, I appreciate people don't know the most tactful ways to go about things, but freedom of choice and freedom of association, it applies even to lawyers and their clients. And you can't coerce someone into anything because it doesn't work that way.